Big surprise for Congress today. The government is now 2 days closer to running out of money than previously thought. The warning came in a letter this morning from Treasury Secretary Jack Lew. Joining me now, Liz Claman, who spoke in a Fox Business exclusive interview with the secretary earlier today. Liz.
Let me tell you, when he walked in the door today at Treasury Department in our interview, and it was an exclusive interview, so he's only speaking to us on this day, he looked very calm, very relaxed. But I can tell you there is a low boil going on here. It's a simmering of real concern. And you know what? Congress got an unhappy breakfast message this morning from the Treasury Secretary. He said we're running out of money to fund the government and to pay off our debts very, very quickly. In fact, more quickly than had originally thought. The previous day had been November 5th. That's when we'd hit the so-called debt ceiling, where we pay our debts and we pay the interest on all of the loans that we've taken out for things that Congress had already approved. Now that has been moved up 48 hours to November 3rd. Why? Because the tax receipts that are coming in are not coming in fast enough to cover those payments, to cover those bills that we owe and that we already planned for in the budget. So what happens? Well, he sent this message to Congress, but as you know, the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, and Republicans control the House, is leaving at the end of October. He doesn't even know who he's going to sit across the table from to negotiate hiking the debt ceiling. And that's what I began by asking Treasury Secretary Jack Lew. Is it different this time? How serious could be? Because we don't want a repeat of 2013 when we had a partial government shutdown. Here's what he said.
I believe that the leaders of Congress understand this has to happen. I don't think it was a very good experience the last time. We got right up to the edge. And, you know, we're talking about a global economy that it's an anxious time in the global economy. The U.S. is seen as an island of strength in the global economy right now. This would be a terrible time to raise concerns about whether the U.S. has the ability to pay its bills and maintain its stability. Well, so I think the leaders understand that.
Bring it home to people at home. Yeah. What would happen when we hit the debt ceiling? Do we stop paying and reimbursing doctors for Medicare? Do bondholders who are waiting for their Treasury payouts not get them? Social Security checks. Can you articulate a little bit so people understand?
The consequences of not being able to pay your bills means that the day will come when there isn't enough money in the federal account to keep current with our obligations. Depending on what day it is, that will affect different kinds of obligations. To me, it makes very little difference in terms of the consequence of keeping our word. If we pay one but not the other, we have to pay all our bills. It's just unacceptable. We can't say we're going to pay Social Security but not veterans. We're going to pay Medicare but not the people who provide electricity to federal hospitals. And we have to pay our principal and interest on our debt. There's been, I think, a fallacious notion that you can pick and choose. Our system was set up to pay our bills because the full faith and credit of the United States should never be called into question.
You just brought up prioritization. It looks like the House Ways and Means Committee has marked up a bill that's called the Default Prevention Act, where they talk about servicing the debt first, meaning making sure that we don't default on the interest, but that other things can be put on the back burners, such as paying certain things to the Department of Defense or the Department of Education, if there was some payout there. Why can we not prioritize?
I think the idea that the United States government would say there's some set of obligations where we promise to pay, whether it's a benefit to an individual or paying for services that we've already received, and we're going to not pay those because we don't have the money, that would be a terrible thing. What does that say about the creditworthiness of the United States?
But let me be clear, you won't prioritize.
I'm saying that in the entirety, we have 80, we have tens of millions of transactions, every period.
Meaning bill paying every month.
Bill paying. And we don't have the capacity to pick and choose. We'll pay this bill and not that bill. The systems weren't set up for that purpose.
President Obama, when he was senator, voted against lifting the debt limit. Why was it okay then, and now he's intransigent as president?
I think if you look at the votes on debt limits over time, they have gotten through Congress with some people voting for it and some people voting against it. And the question is this Congress prepared to let a majority work its will and approve what a majority in Congress knows they need to do, which is the authority for us to pay the bills that they've committed to. I do not believe that there is a majority in Congress that wants to default. I don't even think the leaders want to put it in that place. A majority needs to be permitted to work its will.
But do you agree it looks a little hypocritical, perhaps not just to Republicans, but to voters, that the president, when he was serving as in the Senate under a Republican president, said, no, I'm going to hold you hostage in a way and not lift this debt ceiling?
The debt ceiling, the last time it passed with, I think, over 170 Democratic votes in the House and most Republicans voting against it. They just need to let a majority work its will.
The almighty U.S. dollar is muscling up and stronger than ever. It may be down in the past couple of days, but it's great until it isn't. It's starting to meaningfully hurt earnings of a lot of big U.S. companies that have multinational business. Just yesterday, Walmart cited a strong U.S. dollar as part of the reason it has to downplay its next earnings over the couple of years. Is there any point where you, as Treasury Secretary, might not be as aggressive in allowing the dollar to run so freely and maybe even intervene to weaken it slightly?
I mean, let's be clear. What is going on in the global economy right now is that the U.S. economy, on a relative basis, is performing more strongly than other economies, and that naturally leads to a stronger currency. The answer is not for the U.S. economy to get weaker. It's for the rest of the globe to do better, for demand around the world to increase, and this would work itself through. There's no doubt that there are some headwinds right now because of that situation, but at the core, the U.S. economy is doing very well. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen auto sales at a very high level, almost historic level. We're seeing confidence at a very high level. We're seeing signs of a strong and stable continued growth path. I think we need to stick to making sure we continue to take the steps to strengthen the U.S. economy, and we need to, as I have been just this last weekend at the IMF annual meetings in Peru, urge our international partners to do more to strengthen their economies. What we can't tolerate is if countries take steps to gain unfair advantage to devalue their currencies, and we're very aggressive pushing back on anything that looks like that.
So you're saying no intervention to slightly weaken the dollar or slow down its march to strength?
We have had a pretty consistent message around the world to other countries not to devalue their currencies, not to get into a competitive devaluation, that's both unfair and dangerous to the global economy. I think it's a sign of progress that we've gotten all of the major international bodies to agree that those are principles we all agree to. But I have to tell you, I engage when I see any signs that a country is doing something to lower the value of its currency to gain an unfair advantage. I engage immediately, push back, and we have a great deal of success when we engage.
So that's a no intervention on the U.S. dollar.
I think we have to maintain a strong U.S. economy, and there needs to be a stronger global economy.
The dollar matters because, especially to our viewers, David and Melissa, we have watched company after company. Maybe it's because they don't hedge properly about a stronger dollar and they can't manage their own books. But the dollar that is so strong right now is certainly hurting a lot of companies and stocks that people own, and that's not his problem. He made that very clear. I think his big issue right now, the massive problem that he sees, is whether we hit the debt ceiling and whether Congress doesn't get its act together and really make sure to lift it and fulfill our obligations. In fact, he said if we don't, it's a, quote, self-inflicted wound, and we know what happens there. Lots of bleeding.
Liz Claman, great interview, great job. Congratulations. Good stuff.